As the sun set on December 25th, police received a chilling call to investigate the welfare of Heather Quan and her boyfriend, Ryan Waller. Little did they know, they were about to be thrust into a twisted and harrowing tale of violence and deception. When the officers arrived on the scene, what they encountered was beyond their worst nightmares. The door swung open to reveal a badly beaten and bloodied Ryan Waller. He had a black left eye and cut marks all over his face. Lying on the couch nearby was a woman, motionless and lifeless, presumed to be Heather Quan. As the investigation unfolded, the detectives were thrust into a labyrinth of lies and deceit, uncovering a tangled web of secrets and betrayal that defied belief. The interrogation that followed was one of the most intense and dramatic encounters ever to be documented.
No, it was a real gun, man. It was just a revolver.
If they shot you in the eye with a revolver, you wouldn't be talking to me right now.
How do you know?
It was most likely you'd be dead.
But before we dive into the video, if you're a fan of stories about the darker side of our universe, then do yourself a favor and smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any of our future uploads. Heather Quan, a college student residing in the quiet town of Desert Hills, Arizona, was only 21 years old in 2006. Known for her compassionate nature, Heather had a tendency to extend her friendship to those who were struggling or overlooked by society from a young age. She frequently devoted her weekends to volunteering with disadvantaged children during her teenage and early adult years. She lived in a rental home with her boyfriend. His name was Ryan Waller, and he was 18 years old. The couple's Christmas plans with Ryan's father, Don, should have been a time of warmth and family bonding. However, as the day arrived and Don had prepared a feast for the couple, they failed to show up. Despite Don's persistent attempts to contact them, a sense of unease crept over him, as if something was amiss. Rather than taking matters into his own hands, Don opted to contact the local police to conduct a welfare check on the couple. As they arrived at the Desert Hills, Arizona property, the police noticed some lights on inside but were met with silence after knocking on the door. After a brief pause, they called out to the occupants, announcing their presence as law enforcement and expressing their concern for their well-being. Suddenly, the deadbolt turned and the door creaked open to reveal a battered and bruised Ryan with a swollen black eye and a cut on his nose. As the police peered past Ryan into the dimly lit house, they spotted a figure lying motionless on the couch, presumably Heather. When they inquired about her, Ryan evaded their questions and brushed off their concerns. The police were not deterred, however, informing Ryan that they were there on a welfare check, as requested by his father, and insisted on checking on her well-being. Ryan's behavior remained suspicious and evasive, but eventually he relented and allowed the police to enter the house. As they approached the couch where Heather lay, it quickly became apparent that something was terribly wrong. Heather was not asleep. She was dead. Heather's motionless and lifeless body had been there for several days after suffering what appeared to be a fatal gunshot wound to the head. The police wasted no time in apprehending Ryan and taking him into custody. Though he did not resist arrest, he vehemently protested his innocence and professed to have no knowledge of what had happened to Heather. As he sat alone in the back of the police car, hours seemed to drag by as more and more emergency responders and law enforcement personnel arrived on the scene to process the gruesome aftermath of the crime. The body of Heather, his girlfriend, was removed from the house and transported to the morgue, leaving Ryan alone with his thoughts and fears. Finally, in the early hours of December 26th, Ryan was transported to the Phoenix police station for questioning. At precisely 5:08 a.m. on December 26th, Ryan was ushered into a nondescript, cramped interrogation room. Clad in a pristine white jumpsuit and barefoot, Ryan's hands remained unshackled as he settled into the solitary chair positioned in the rear corner of the room. Initially facing the room's center, Ryan's gaze was suddenly drawn to a set of handcuffs attached to the table in front of him. Although no instructions had been given, Ryan instinctively took hold of the restraints and secured them around his wrists. The tension in the room was palpable as Ryan sat there, waiting for the interrogation to begin. As the clock struck 5:17 a.m., Detective Dalton entered the interrogation room with an ominous expression etched on his face. Without wasting a single moment, he delivered a startling announcement to Ryan. They were about to take pictures of his feet. Ryan was instructed to hoist his feet up onto the table, which loomed ominously beside him. Initially, Ryan's mind was clouded with confusion, unable to comprehend the events that were unfolding before him. However, he knew better than to question the authority of Detective Dalton, and slowly but surely, he complied with the command to elevate his feet onto the table. As his feet dangled perilously above the ground, another officer entered the room, brandishing a camera. For the next 10 agonizing minutes, Ryan was subjected to a relentless barrage of flashes and swabs as the officers went about their business of documenting his feat with ruthless efficiency. Throughout this grueling ordeal, Detective Dalton watched on with an unyielding stare, his presence a constant reminder of the inescapable grip of the law. In a dramatic turn of events at 5:28 a.m., the 10-minute session came to an end as the officers completed photographing and swabbing Ryan's feet. With the departure of the second officer, Dalton shut the door behind him and strode over to the table. Without hesitation, he grabbed the chair from the other side of Ryan and dragged it closer to him. Seating himself, Dalton introduced himself and began a line of questioning. Starting with simple inquiries, he asked Ryan to confirm his name, date of birth, and social security number, all of which Ryan complied with. However, the tone shifted when Dalton asked Ryan if he understood the reason for his presence and interrogation, to which Ryan responded with a resounding no. At a critical juncture in the interrogation, Dalton decided to read Ryan his rights. It was then that Ryan's behavior took a strange and alarming turn. His expression became blank and uncomprehending as Dalton tried to explain the situation to him. Sensing the confusion in Ryan, Dalton attempted to lighten the mood with a reference to crime shows such as Law & Order and CSI, hoping to make Ryan understand the gravity of the situation. But Ryan's response was a flat no, and Dalton was taken aback. He probed further, asking if Ryan had never seen a show where suspects were read their rights. Ryan's demeanor changed abruptly, becoming more defensive, and he answered with a strained, "Oh yeah. The sudden shift in Ryan's behavior led Dalton to suspect that Ryan was lying about something, despite it being a trivial matter. Dalton takes note of Ryan's lies, but doesn't fixate on something so small. Instead, he decides to formally recite Ryan's rights before proceeding with basic inquiries. The next question was, what was the highest grade you achieved in school? Ryan avoids making eye contact and maintains a distant gaze, wearing a vacant expression. When asked about his highest grade, Ryan simply responds with a lackadaisical, "I don't know." Dalton is taken aback, questioning how Ryan could not recall his academic accomplishments. Ryan's response quickly changes to eighth grade after being pressed for an answer, revealing his tendency to fabricate the truth. Dalton notes this as another instance of deception, creating a concerning pattern of dishonesty that cannot be ignored. Once again, Dalton chooses not to dwell on the solution at hand. Instead, he opts for a follow-up inquiry based on Ryan's admission of having completed only up to 8th grade. With bated breath, Dalton inquires, "So, did you acquire your GED?" The answer to this query may seem black or white, but Ryan's response is far from clear-cut.
For what?
What's the highest grade that you completed?
B?
No. Not grade, as in letter grade. I'm asking, did you graduate high school?
No.
And the highest you went was 8th grade?
Yep.
Do you know how to read and write, Ryan?
Yeah.
With the education discussion with Ryan leading nowhere, Dalton instead launches into an intense interrogation of Heather. Ignoring all the shortcomings in Ryan's previous responses, he hammers him with a question about his relationship status, knowing full well that he was involved with Heather, as confirmed by Ryan's father, Don. Dalton asks, "Do you have a girlfriend?" To which Ryan responds with, "No." Dalton persists and quizzes him about Heather, only to be met with a grossly inaccurate description. Ryan claims Heather is a teenage girl aged between 16 to 17, when in reality, she is 21. Even more shockingly, he botches her last name, stating it's Kaiman when it's actually Quan. Despite Heather's various aliases, Ryan remains oblivious to her true identity. The scene was tense as Dalton confronted Ryan about the massive bruise on the left side of his face. At first, Ryan tried to play it off, claiming he didn't know how it happened, but Dalton wasn't satisfied with that answer and pressed him for more information. As Ryan opened up, he confessed that he believed Heather had caused the injury, but insisted it was an accident. Before going into the interrogation, the police believed that Ryan had actually been involved in a physical altercation with Heather, and that she had hit him in the face in a desperate attempt to break free. But the fight had ended in a tragedy, with Ryan ultimately killing Heather. Despite Ryan's attempts to downplay the incident, saying it was an accident, Dalton knew that his story wasn't adding up. He probed for more details, hoping to uncover the truth about what really happened that night. But as the questioning continued, Ryan's account began to shift and change, as he would say things that just didn't make sense, leaving Dalton more suspicious than ever before. Dalton had to step in. "Ryan, there's a dead girl in your living room."
I don't know. I just want to go to sleep, man. That's it.
Hey, Ryan?
Huh? Huh?
There's a dead girl in your living room.
She's dead?
Yes.
Heather?
I don't know. I want to know what happened in your house last night.
The girl on the couch is dead?
I don't know if she's on the couch. She's dead.
Well, these people came over.
Ryan's response was nothing short of a genuine shock. His voice quivered with intense interest as he absorbed the news that was just delivered to him. What happened next was truly remarkable. Within seconds of hearing about Heather's situation, Ryan conjured up an intricate tale, as if he had been harboring this information all along. It was as if a switch had been flipped inside him, unlocking a previously hidden wellspring of knowledge.
Well, these people came over. Richie and his dad. With shoot and arrow, bow and darts. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They hit me and her with those. That's it. And Heather wasn't there. And Eric wasn't there. It was just me and Heather. What was there?
You and Heather were there. And then what happened?
And that's it. Richie and his dad tried to break in through the back.
Richie and Dad? His dad?
Mm-hmm.
Who's Richie?
I don't know.
Well, you obviously know him. You know his name by
He
Richie.
used to live there.
Was he a roommate of yours?
He used to be.
And they hit you and they hit you?
Yeah.
Now it's Richie that hit you, not Heather?
No, Richie and his dad.
Richie and his dad. They hit you.
Yes.
Why?
Because they're trying to get their stuff. I don't know why.
Ryan's narrative has reached a level of intricacy that is beyond comprehension, and its countless alterations have rendered it utterly incredible. Despite his best efforts to keep up with Ryan's account, Dalton can no longer feign interest. The story has become so incomprehensible that he simply cannot pretend to understand it any longer.
I really don't. I really don't know.
Okay. You're telling me you're all over the board here, number one. You're saying bows and arrows, you're saying revolvers, and you're saying some other thing, and you're saying they shot you in the eye. Okay? They shot you with a revolver in your eye.
Yes. And that's it?
Is it a BB gun?
No, it was a real gun, man. It was just a
If
revolver.
they shot you in the eye with a revolver, you wouldn't be talking to me right now.
How do you know?
It was most likely you'd be dead.
That's what I thought too, man. I really don't know.
Following their conversation, Dalton takes on an aggressive stance with Ryan, accusing him outright of Heather's murder. However, Ryan persists in his denial and maintains that he is innocent. His answers are increasingly illogical and self-contradictory, leaving Dalton perplexed. Despite his conviction that Ryan is guilty, none of his responses provide any incriminating evidence. After approximately 45 minutes of questioning, Dalton is at a loss for how to proceed. He contemplates his next move when he suddenly notices something on Ryan's face, prompting him to call Ryan closer for a closer look.
Get him off my table. Let me see your nose. Put your legs down. Put your legs down. Bring your face closer.
Oh, my head hurts.
Okay. Yeah, be right back.
What Dalton had finally discovered were 4 bullet holes in Ryan's face and head. Ryan had not committed any wrongdoing and was a victim just like Heather. The only difference, Ryan survived. Sometime back in late November, a man by the name of Richie Carver resided with Ryan and Heather, but it was later discovered that he was flirting with Heather. When Heather revealed this to Ryan, he was consumed with fury, sparking a tumultuous brawl between Ryan and Richie, resulting in the latter's expulsion from the premises. This was embarrassing for Richie, so he started to plot his revenge. On the 23rd of December, 2 days before the welfare check, Richie and his father, Larry Carver, went to Ryan and Heather's house to carry out their revenge plot. When Richie and Larry made their way to the back of Ryan and Heather's house, Ryan saw them at the back door that was near their kitchen, and he ran over to try to stop them from getting inside. Richie and Larry managed to overpower Ryan to get the door open, and Richie reached in with his hand, which was carrying a gun, and he shot Ryan point blank twice in the face. The first bullet went through his nose and out the other side of his nose, but it continued to travel as it went back into his head, through his left eye, into his brain, where it got lodged. 6 pieces of Ryan's skull that broke off from the first bullet went inside of his brain as well. The second bullet that was fired into Ryan's head hit the side of his head, but did not penetrate into his skull. However, it did break off a piece of his skull. Ryan dropped to the ground unconscious. Richie and Larry assumed Ryan was dead. They stepped over Ryan's body and walked into the living room where Heather was on the sofa. Richie walked up, put a gun to her head, and fired a single shot. A fatal shot. The 2 men stole some things in the house and then fled the scene. The following morning, he woke up without any knowledge of what had transpired and spent the entire day aimlessly wandering around his house while Heather's lifeless body was still on the couch. He went back to bed and repeated the same behavior on Christmas Day, thinking that Heather was still asleep. Eventually, the police arrived after Don asked for a welfare check. Upon seeing Ryan, they immediately suspected him of killing Heather, which influenced their treatment of him. When Dalton looked closer and realized the bullet holes in Ryan's face, he called an ambulance. Ryan was urgently taken to the hospital for emergency surgery, which saved his life, but it came with a heavy price. A substantial portion of his brain had to be removed, and his eyes had to be taken out. Post-surgery, Ryan was unable to take care of himself due to the extensive brain damage he had suffered. Consequently, he moved in with his parents, who looked after him full-time. 10 years later, on the 20th of January 2016, Ryan passed away due to a seizure that was directly linked to the injuries he had sustained during the attack. The initial lack of care he received during the crucial 8 hours after the police found him contributed to his death. For a harrowing 6-hour period, Ryan sat in the police car and endured relentless interrogation, all while his brain slowly bled out from the moment police first checked on him to the shocking revelation that he had been shot. The Phoenix Police Department conducted an internal investigation after the mishandling of Ryan's case came to light, but no one was publicly disciplined. Ryan's family could have sued the Phoenix Police Department, but they opted not to, stating that they only wanted their son back and a lawsuit would not bring him back. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. We post new stories every week covering the darker side of our universe. If you want to see more videos like this, then I highly recommend that you click the video now on your screen. That video has been selected specifically for you. Enjoy.